no tax on Social Security benefits.
Donald Trump has vowed to eliminate taxes on Social Security, but that would require a supermajority of 60 votes in Congress, which he currently doesn't have. So Trump would not be able to pull this off if he had to go through normal legislative channels. But there is a process called budget reconciliation that allows certain tax and spending changes to pass the Senate with a simple majority of 51 votes. This is the same process through which Trump will eventually try to push through the extension of his tax cuts. So the question becomes, if there's no way he could get a supermajority to permanently eliminate the taxes on Social Security, could he do it under budget reconciliation? Well, first, let's discuss some of the rules that govern how budget reconciliation works. First, it can only be used for budget-related items like spending, revenue, or debt. Second, it cannot be used to change Social Security benefits or funding mechanisms directly, as per a legislative quirk known as the Byrd Rule. More on the Byrd Rule later. And third, it must be deficit neutral or offset revenue losses with spending cuts or tax increases elsewhere. Okay, so this looks like a serious uphill battle. He could possibly structure the change as a tax cut, but here are the massive hurdles he would face. Eliminating Social Security taxes would reduce federal revenue by billions and blow a massive hole in the federal budget. Under reconciliation rules, those holes would have to be plugged through other spending cuts or increases in taxes elsewhere. Now, I mentioned the Byrd Rule earlier. This rule says that Social Security is protected from the budget reconciliation process, meaning changes to Social Security benefits or funding sources, like payroll taxes, cannot be made through this process, although there may be a way to thread the needle on this, which I'll discuss shortly. And the last hurdle is political resistance. Even if Republicans control both houses of Congress, you may have some members who oppose it if it exacerbates the federal deficit or compromises the long-term integrity of the program. Speaking of the long-term integrity of Social Security, you got to remember that the current Social Security Trust Fund is slated to go broke in 2033 under current budgetary assumptions. If Trump were to eliminate Social Security taxes, it would bankrupt the trust fund even sooner. Absent new funding, that would result in across-the-board cuts of between 20 and 25% for all recipients. So unless Congress were to raise revenue in other areas, this would strike a huge blow to the long-term integrity of Social Security. So if Trump has any chance of pulling this off, 3 stars need to align. First, he has to have a simple majority in both houses. He does currently have this going for him. Second, the change must fit Senate budget rules. It would need to be framed as a general tax cut rather than a change to Social Security's funding. And third, he would have to put forth a solution to help offset the loss of all that revenue. This could potentially be done through spending cuts or raising taxes in other areas. Okay, let's discuss whether or not I think all of this is even likely. Personally, I don't think there's any way that Trump gets this through. The Byrd Rule makes it nearly impossible to touch Social Security's funding through budget reconciliation. I think that if he tried to push this through, it would violate budget rules and increase the deficit. And even under a GOP-controlled Congress, it's going to be hard for him to find the support to push this through. He would most likely need to strike a bipartisan deal to change Social Security taxation through regular legislative channels. And due to the blow this would deal to the long-term viability of the program, this is not likely to happen. But let's assume that Trump is somehow able to push all of this through under budget reconciliation. You got to remember that any tax cuts that happen through this process have a sunset provision. That means that in 8 years, everything reverts right back to what it was prior to when the tax cut took place. So while this might be a nice shot in the arm for seniors in the short term, ultimately they will end up continuing to pay Social Security taxes in years 9 and beyond. By the way, only 40% of all Social Security recipients pay tax on their benefits, and the average savings they would experience through this tax cut would only be about $560 per year on average. In summary, pushing through the elimination of taxes on Social Security would provide some minor benefits to some Americans. It would strike a blow to the long-term viability of the Social Security program, and Trump would have to flout the Senate budget rules to pull it off. In short, I don't think it's likely to happen, but if it does, it would have to be through budget reconciliation, in which case taxes on Social Security would return in 2035. This is David McKnight. Thanks for watching.